I'm going to compare these stories that just came out: Wicked, Alchemised, Pillion, and K-pop Demon Hunters, and why they're all the same story, and we love telling this story, and I'll also throw in Star Wars and Pride and Prejudice just as the constant in this experiment. Alchemised is a current literary darling in the bookshop windows. It was a lauded Hermione fanfiction published with new characters and a new world. I ain't really into Hermione fanfiction, so that gave an initial impression of a cheap story, which I must refute because I thought it was an excellent framework to examine war and a fascinating and rich universe. Pillion won Best Screenplay at Cannes and is writer-director Harry Lighton's debut feature. It features Alexander Skarsgård as a mysterious sexy biker dom, and Harry Melling, who is fantastic as this sweet, awkward British mummy's boy suburban sub, and it's set in Bromley. I will spoil everything apart from Alchemised and Pillion, assuming you're up to date with pop culture or have kids. Most films follow the hero to self-actualization, but these stories focus on two characters, and largely the plot revolves around their relationship and emotional journey, rather than or as well as their external achievements towards self-actualization. This ain't new, especially for women, because by making our younger selves heroes, princesses that self-actualize by finding a prince, or the societal context of good marriage equals freedom, self-actualization is intrinsically linked to romance, which, regardless of gender or time period, is a form of exploring self-actualization in real life and literary media. Romance, in the best sense, is finding your truest self through someone else reciprocally, and it either works out in the end or it don't in the stories. I'm going to use romance in a literary sense, not a literal one for Wicked, because that's the love and relationship that the movie focuses on. Fairy tales, which despite aggressive marketing in the 21st century, were, I assume, stories for all genders and depicted symbolic masculine and feminine, with the symbolic feminine as the hero. And I still think we're telling the same story. The symbolic feminine, or literary sub, needs the symbolic masculine, or literary dom, to wake them up towards self-actualization, with a side quest of symbolic feminine or literary sub as the angel of innocence and love we must all adore, and the symbolic masculine or literary dom potentially breaks or bends the rules in their framework that they exist in because of their attraction to the literary sub. We love binaries, we love them. They satisfy the brain, I think. The clear, us, them, good, bad. And then we love to be like, wait, it's more complicated. So we love to have clear visual dichotomy. Sun, moon, masculine, feminine. Green, the other feminine, black and leather. Pink, the correct feminine, soft and fluffy. Light side, dark side. Gryffindor, brave and true. Slytherin, ambitious and cunning. In Alchemised, instead of the Order of the Phoenix versus Death Eaters, the concept is like there's an ongoing war. The Eternal Flame is a sort of theocracy with mythos based on imagery of sun over moon, in short, day over night, that kind of thing, with a dynastic ruling family with powers of flame, ideals of knighthood, goodness and faith triumphing over evil and unbelieving, or the like positive mythos imagery of like, you know, shining night, glorious flame, etc. versus a regime surrounding followers of a necromancer that galvanized the supposedly abominable to the faith to join his movement. And they're doing quite well because they utilize the dead in warfare. I mean, yeah, that's smart, isn't it? But it's a great example of clear imagery of light and darkness. And then the story explores the truth, the espionage and the behind the scenes and the sacrifice that goes into, you know, upholding the good imagery, like Wicked. Pillion is like the best version of high school king or queen dates nerd. The concept is amazing, like so much comic potential as well as a great narrative framework to explore desire and relational and social dynamics. And more, he's a proud twat with rights to own and inherit great wealth and land, which he has, and I'm not, but I like myself. Demon, not a demon. And there's the rub. That's where the literary feminine is like, oh wait, is there a part of the literary masculine that is within me and vice versa, and they explore and transform. When we explore these dichotomies, the secondary character seems to always represent the institution or the society, and they have difficulty extricating themselves as individuals from the ideology, like Mr. Darcy's backhanded proposal.
I fought against my better judgment, my family's expectation, the inferiority of your birth, my rank, the circumstance, all these...
Wicked's a weird one because you'd think that naturally Galinda is the symbolic feminine and Elphaba the symbolic masculine, but I think I mean it in the sense that feminine is usually the other, and therefore Galinda is the symbolic masculine because she's a status quo. The literary dom symbolic masculine does not know how to exist outside of the institute. Their sense of self and identity is tied to the society or institution they are coerced into or willingly part of. Glinda's like Miss Osnes. She don't know if she could function without being adored by the normies, and she bends for Elphaba because she loves her, and then she goes back and forth into the fold because she thrives in the institution. She can't go with Elphaba because as soon as she steps out of Oz, she's lost as a person, whereas Elphaba can see herself clearly and is self-sufficient. Draco, which is kind of irrelevant, but let's just use the example. His pride comes from being part of the old families. That's what he's bragging to Harry about. So what is he without that lineage? Like, who is he? In Alchemised, Cain was forcibly indoctrinated as a teenager into the equivalent Death Eaters. I think referring to when Draco was in Half-Blood Prince becoming a Death Eater with the mark. So Voldemort could toy with the Malfoy family, because like Lucius and Narcissa actually care for their son, which Voldemort I assume finds amusing, because he can't understand that, and enjoys the theatrics of power and torment by getting Draco to do shit. And, you know, Lucius and Narcissa have to hope to Merlin that he does well, or, you know, it's gonna be dire. Cain in Alchemised cannot be himself outside of his goals and his motivations within the war. He doesn't see himself outside of this urgent now. There is no life outside this war, outside his role as a necromancer. Helena, on the other hand, although she's suffering as an outsider working hard as a healer in the war, she has a sense of self, and she's a foreigner. I assume an allegory for being muggle-born, but she has an entire culture she's from, her own traditions and practices, which she continues, mild spoiler, after the war. In Pillion, Ray has his framework of self-expression and lifestyle, which is subdom relationship, and he starts to lose it, or let's say Colin starts to challenge it because of his affection for him. Mild spoiler, mute now. But he literally loses himself when they break that framework. You can come back. In KPop Demon Hunters, Judy tries to leave the fold, but he can't because King Demon Boy's got a hold of his balls or whatever it is. That's the simplest version of everyone's dilemma. After we establish this satisfying binary, we need to cross the boundaries, blur it up, make light and dark grey. Darth Vader redeeming himself. Rumi is actually a demon, or half demon. Mr. Darcy's proposal to Lizzie throws everything she thinks about him out the window. Galinda is nice, like literally potential social suicide, which is her whole thing is being popular because she's like, nah, I'm gonna reach out to Elphaba. And Pillion, there are some moments of affection. Can I say that? So we have this forbidden relationship, we love that. What we want to know and what we yearn for is that the literary dom is not as much of a twat as we thought. That's what we're desperate for. We want redemption arc. This is a weird trope in redemption arc. Literary dom ends up sacrificing themselves. What's that about? Pride and Prejudice has a tame version, but it's still social sacrifice to marry Lizzie. And my guy goes on mission to marry his sister to arch enemy and pay him bare too. Star Wars, Rise of Skywalker and KPop Demon Hunters is the same movie. It's the same movie. There's something really weird about this good woman fix bad man. Man must die. Man must atone by giving his life. And somehow that leads to her self-actualization. I'm just gonna say they're as bad as each other, but KPop Demon Hunters is for kids, so it's okay for it to end open-ended, moralistically kaput with death of lover and no exploration of demon side, whereas Star Wars, not so much. Where's Rian Johnson? Oh, succeeding elsewhere. Whatever they done it wrong. But let me try and think what they was trying to do. They're trying to do redemption arc, where their ills are atoned by the greatest sacrifice of all. Therefore, the audience can't be mad that they're bad because they're dead. But there's no accountability there. And we, the audience, are invested in the meaningful relationship with the female protagonist that you, man, made us feel with all the time and the effort of the narrative. Why can't you just visit him in jail for the rest of his life or something? Come on. I understand that it's mythic. Yeah, it's mythic. He's just a transformational tool. Like, you know, he's just a fairy tale. We don't need him for the narrative anymore. So we dash him in the bin. This is a 3D story, bro. It's not a fairy tale.
Emotional, damn it.
You gotta think of something new, like. Wicked is also weird because Elphaba is the one sacrificing herself. But she's just sacrificing her image, and she low-key runs off into the sunset with straw dick and her cardigan and her rucksack. She fine. Glinda sacrifices her ideals and her being to be someone else for Elphaba, primarily for the memory of her. Alchemised, mild spoiler. But Cain doesn't exist outside self-sacrifice. He thinks it's his purpose, his value. Pillion, as I said before, Ray is sacrificing his whole sexy biker dom thing to have a meal with Mumsy. I'm gonna drop a big spoiler here for those who've seen it to think about because it's low-key interesting, so mute now. There's something about the climax which weirdly echoes what I said about Star Wars and K-pop demon hunters. Like, why must man vanish or symbolically die? Do you get me? It's interesting. As if it's necessary for the growth of the protagonist. They are the transformational tool. Well, it's deep, man. It's deep. All of you come back. Pillion obviously has a lot of literary sub-sacrifice, and I feel like although Colin is exploring himself as a sub and enjoys it, like the film is only enjoyable because we see he's enjoying it and the self-exploration. But he pushes himself to a point where he's sacrificing too much, and I think all these protagonists get to that point. Elphaba is like, bye, I can't do this anymore. Helena, if you've read it, is like when she's meeting Morris, if you know what I mean, you know what I mean. When Rumi goes all apeshit, and they get truthful, and then the dynamic shifts. All these stories are shown through the literary sub's eyes, the literary feminines. We value them as the hero, as they have what we assume the furthest to develop. They are the other, the outsider to the status quo, and therefore have a wider emotional bandwidth that makes them empathetic or likeable, or this quality of goodness that is revered back to medieval times, the literary maiden, bastion of virtue. But they might be passive and need the literary masculine to awaken them, so they develop their sense of self through the literary dom, who might change their world to accommodate their literary sub. But we ultimately care about their self-actualization, if our literary sub becomes accepted in society or not, truthful to themselves or find themselves or not, and at what cost. That's the climax of their stories, is when the dynamic shifts. They're their full selves because the truth is out. They're not holding back anymore, and the dynamic shifts in the relationship, and the dynamic shifts in themselves. They've transformed, and yeah. They both get to this point where they both have to change, and then their whole world changes because there is a give and take of the structure. Going back to binary blurring, there's this big theme of good and bad and truth. Pride and Prejudice is like, I'm good, he's bad. Oh wait, the truth is, I was prejudiced, my bad, he's good. Star Wars is that on epic proportions. My G goes bad trying to be good, then redeems himself for his little baby boy, and then the sequel trilogy tries to explore it again, but sacked Rian Johnson. Rumi's problems are all fine once her friends know the truth and that she's part demon, accepting her bad with her good. But before that, she could only confide in bad guy Genu, which blurred the lines between good and bad. Morning thought. This creates an intimacy between the two characters. They represent good or bad, but they've found out the truth. But neither of their factions are disillusioned, and therefore they have this liminal space in which they are alone, and therefore intimacy is created. And then we get a literary romance where we, the audience, are drawn to because it's a forbidden romance. And that's what we really enjoy, is this intimacy that's created. Okay, back to you, girl. Wicked is an exploration of good and wicked, good and bad, and the truth, and PR and propaganda. Alchemised does that, but not for kids, deeply 18, and how wartime theocracy can galvanise people on the idea of good versus evil. Pillion is the personal dinner table level of these epically proportioned tales, where even Lizzie's whole life and well-being depends on her marriage. The stakes are personal and emotional in that regard, but you know that can still completely ruin you. One example, Colin's mother is dying of cancer, giving an urgency to the need to understand now rather than later. And she loves Colin so much in such a wonderful, classic British mum way. And my favourite scene in the movie is her not understanding their subdom relationship, and mild spoiler if you want a laugh unspoiled. But she calls Ray a cunt to his face over the table. And in her mind, he's a bad guy, because she don't understand and she wants reassurance that this relationship ain't abusive. She comes from a sweet, suburban, authentic and perfect hetero relationship with all its cultural norms of affection, banal small talk and domestic equality. Colin's parents' relationship is so believable, as is their love for him, which makes this scene fantastic and heartwarming and hilarious and hurtful, because Colin is happy. Oh my god, was that an owl? Sorry, that was really exciting. There's an owl outside. Oh, let me start again. What did I say?
Ow, 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 on her back.
The scene is hilarious and heartwarming and hurtful because Colin is happy with Ray for the most part, but there are nuances and boundaries they still need to work out, which makes this a tender spot to touch. But this, I think, is a great example of kitchen sink good and evil and the truth, which the normies might not understand, but that don't make them any less beloved as mother rather than mob of munchkins, nor the outsiders any more deserving of being ostracised. So we've got the hero, who is like a literary maiden. They're all technically coming of age tales in a sense. There is a dichotomy, and the hero is always on the light side or the right side, or they're modest, their values are goodness and caring for people. The whole plot revolves around their relationship with a literary dominant, be that socially, as a wartime captive, literally, or someone powerful on the dark side that might enable their exploration of themselves. They are hiding a part of themselves, or they're just not fully realised yet, and we explore what truth is. Then in this truthfulness, I feel the climax of all the stories revolve around them telling each other they love each other, or at least in K-pop, affected each other deeply. And then there is some sacrifice or procedure or absence, and the protagonist is self-actualized, or they've found freedom. If we look at the hero's journey, it's like the other person is the adventure and mentor, and they're usually quite isolated between the two worlds, with only each other as their confidants, because crossing the worlds is taboo. The resurrection part is interesting because it's like, it's not really the protagonist's death if the literary dominant sacrifices themselves, but then if they're bonded, then isn't that the same thing? Like heartbreak is the same as a death. Sorry for vagueness, I'm trying to dance around spoilers and generalize. Some characters stay together, but there's definitely an element of sacrifice and ordeal. I guess we really like the story of symbolic feminine meets symbolic masculine and changes then, but also it's a symbolic feminine story and she's the focus, and we focus on their change and actualization. It's about transformation through the other, finding that part of you in the other character you need to grow to, and fully integrating your masculine and feminine self. The heroine's journey is something like that. In the end, our protagonist knows themselves better, their boundaries better, their strengths better. They might have stood alone at the start of their stories anyway, but they can stand alone with much more confidence now. And their other half got them there. The other half has to be as far away from their character as possible, because they have to reach that far to incorporate that complete differentness into themselves. And I think we like to see that. We like to see the breadth of ourselves. And maybe the tale we keep telling ourselves, which is weird because I feel like right now we love binaries and us and them, and they're wrong and we're right, but that we can dissolve binaries and we're all connected and can be truthful to ourselves and others, and there is a vast breadth of our character and we're not just one thing. Or not. Alphabet is like, we must continue the facade. For morale, keep the binaries, they prefer the story. George Monbiot said, a string of facts, however well attested, has no power to correct or dislodge a powerful story. The only response it is likely to provoke is indignation. People often angrily deny facts that clash with the narrative truth established in their minds. Munchkins, man. Alchemised similarly has a story within it which is like, we must uphold the binary for morale. Clearly, K-pop demon hunters in Star Wars don't even want to address any sort of incorporation of the dark side into the peace treaty. There ain't no Good Friday agreement here. Like the fairy tale, the shadow self, the dark side, has served their transformational purpose and they can go away now. Let me not be saying that subdom kink preferences are anything but a lovely subculture, and there's no need to equate people's preferences to that they prefer binaries in the wide scheme of things. I'm only commenting on it because it was in a film and a narrative and it was used to explore relationship. However, it's kind of interesting that we keep upholding these binaries at the end of all these tales, or at least the world upholds the binaries, but the characters don't. I saw this review on Letterboxd. Bottoms, some of them subs, in appetite or merely circumstance, are looking for structure, a touch hard enough to reach the mind, a test to pass, a house to walk into. They search ardently, ironically, to be contained. Tops, some of them doms, in appetite or merely circumstance, press their bottoms to the wall, forgetting for a moment that walls build a house. The bottom can live there for a time, for as long as the top can bear to keep his company. The bottom is vigilant, he searches eyes and bookshelves, he watches the top in his sleep, and he takes it until he just can't take it anymore. I give, and there it is. The top's breathing quickens, the whites of his eyes turn pink, the house shakes and the walls crack, but then where are they? Who does the top become on his back? And the bottom above him, triumphant and relieved. Where are they now? What are they now? And what can they do? This don't just apply to Pillion. There's no binary anymore, so what now? And I don't think the stories are particularly good at tying that up. I think some of them do go into the liminalness, the pain of it, the system's gone. Who are we? In my little theory, yeah, maybe Glinda is the protagonist. In this bit, at least. Because she's the living transformation through the fake death of Alphaba, the shadow self of her who died. And now she's transformed. Glinda has changed the system and herself. Alchemised has an epilogue, which implies the system might change. Pillion technically has an epilogue, but it's personal, it ain't political story, so Colin has changed in his internal system. K-pop demon hunters for kids, so they just run out of capacity, that's calm. They all kind of end weird, you know, like liminal, but hopeful. It's kind of shit storytelling, you know. But maybe it's like, break the system, find connection, challenge your perception, don't be afraid of losing everything you know to be true, and yourself, and your sense of self. You can take it. You are vast, and the world deserves your effort, and the real you. Something like that anyway. Thank you for watching. Please let me know your thoughts. I ain't never done one of these before. I don't know why I've done it today. Like and subscribe. Is that what you say? I'm just copying people. Like and subscribe. Don't know why. You don't have to. But maybe I'll do this again. Who knows, yeah. Is it here? Is it there? Arigatou gozaimasu. I'm not. Thank you. Yeah. I had to get that out of my system. I don't know why it's in the system. I have done nothing with my English and drama degree since I got it. So maybe this is what 9 grand is for. Thank you for watching my video. And yeah, chat to me.